Lord knows to my surprise, the only one who could ever reach me was the son of a preacher.
I wanted to pop on here and do this video. I haven't been on here for a couple weeks, and honestly that's because there's a lot of really good things happening in my life and some not. So I just felt like it's been good to focus on some other stuff over the last couple weeks. I've known I was gonna make this video for a while, and I think the reason I knew that is because, well, I've taken a year off from drinking and from dating. Some of these videos have been a great opportunity for me, or just kind of like a forcing function for me to gather my thoughts on something and be able to present it or get it to a certain point where I don't mind talking about it. And I definitely wanted to do that with these two things and what I've done over the last year. I like to set goals around my birthday, and this past week was my birthday. And yeah, so I've been sober for a year and I haven't dated or pursued any girls for a year. Now, I've had several friends ask me, well, have you not dated by choice? Which is very disrespectful, but yeah, maybe a mixture. I can say that I've also lived in Lawton for a year, so it hasn't been that hard, the dating thing. There isn't much of a dating scene out here in Oklahoma. So hopefully this is kind of just raw and what I've been thinking about. I think it would be good to sort of give some context to the decision I made to take a year to go on a season. Season, by the way, is just a word that a lot of Christians like to use. I took a year off. So this season of sobriety and singleness, I think it would be good to give some context behind why I decided to do this. Over the last year or two, I've really deliberately started to unpack and process some trauma that are in my life, or that is in my life. And I'm a firm believer in, whether that trauma was self-inducing or it was done to you, just owning that, processing it in a good way, which is what I'm going to get into, not a bad way, and moving forward from it, really learning from it, and then kind of taking what you can from those experiences and moving on with your life. And really I think this is what this video is about. Like it's been a couple days after my birthday and I still haven't drank, and I just kind of wanted to make this video because I feel like it would be a good bookend to this season. Like I said, started processing some of the trauma, and as I did that, I started to realize that I was running to a couple different things to medicate or to just feel okay about some of the ways that I felt because of this trauma. The first and second thing that I identified was that I was self-medicating with alcohol, and I was trying to feel validated and just loved, I think, in just a series of girlfriends that I had. Let me start with the alcohol. I went to a military academy, and it was a big part of the culture, and honestly, like, an understandable part of the culture, because you just get pounded all week, and alcohol is it's a place that it brings you to a place where you just kind of can forget all of that. And for me, like, I kind of learned that as a coping mechanism. I would say also at my school, like, I don't know if necessarily binge drinking is worse at where I went to school over other schools, but I do know that there's always this feeling that we didn't have a lot of time and we had to drink all of the alcohol in as little amount of time as possible. So that's just kind of how I never drank in high school, so that's just kind of how I learned to drink at school. And then I kind of carried that into the Army, and these are some psychological words, but if you don't understand them, but I think it'll make sense. I would continue to have triggering events, throughout my life, and I began to realize that, when I would get really emotional, and I still have these thoughts. I still do, even after not drinking for a year. I would get really emotional and I would immediately decide, hey, I want to get as drunk as I possibly can. And And for me, it's just a way to like forget, you know, a lot of the pain in my life. And I also started to realize that like I started to turn to alcohol for smaller and smaller things, so that, you know, even if like and this is how it kind of ties into girls, but like say I got turned down by like a crush, like I would just immediately to turn to alcohol and just kind of lose myself in that in drunkenness. You know, I don't think that alcohol and obviously girls are a bad thing. But I do think that you can pursue, especially in the case of girls, not use, but pursue with girls and then use alcohol in very toxic ways. And in the case of alcohol, as I started to process some of this trauma, I realized that instead of actually dealing with it in a productive way, I was just getting drunk. And that wasn't really moving me forward as a person and in my faith as a Christian, I believe. I just, you know, a couple of things happened. I never, like, I wouldn't drink a lot, and I wouldn't drink regularly. I wouldn't drink by myself, but there were a couple things last year in the months leading up to my birthday that happened, including the weekend of my birthday, that I just decided, hey, I need to take an extended break. And I also just started to see like that there were some things that were going to happen over the next year, I believed, that I wanted to be really present for. And I've had my sister come here to live with me, and I didn't want to be just sitting around wasted while she's, you know, here, like she needs my support or she needs to talk about something. I wanted to be available and present for her. In terms of alcohol and taking a year off, what I've learned, unfortunately, the hardest thing about taking the year off for me was my best friends. And this is something that I've talked about with them. I try to remain understanding with this, because I think they see me maybe and they're like, hey, you know, you don't have a drinking problem. And then also for them, you know, I'm a very like, I would say fun drunk, and like when I'm drunk with everyone, we have fun, and you know, it even felt bad kind of sometimes to just like take that away from them. As dumb as that kind of sounds, like, you know, they kind of had to go through this with me. Like it was just kind of awkward, and I would just be there and I would be sober, and that was tough for them. Now all of them, especially towards the end of the year, like really rallied around me and talked me through it and really encouraged me to finish strong. But initially, like in the first 6 months, you know, they were like, oh, is he gonna really do this? Like, so that was really challenging. So if you're interested in taking a period of time in sobriety, just understand that it's gonna be challenging for your friends, and to, I think, be understanding of that, but then also just to try to, as graciously as possible, tell them like, hey, this is really important to me. One of the reasons I decided to take at least a year off was because I wanted to go through a full calendar year, through every holiday, New Year's, Christmas, Thanksgiving, July 4th, any event that could possibly happen, my birthday again. I wanted to go through all of those things in a calendar year. So like, I still, you know, went to my draft party in Philadelphia, and I still did my yearly visit with my two best friends in Nashville for New Year's. It was interesting being sober, because you know, something that they don't think about is that you're more available for them. You can drive, you can be the sober friend out. I mean, there are definitely some positives to it. And I'm not just trying to play that up, but like, you are certainly more available to your friends in sobriety. And I think that was something that was valuable to me while I was sober this year. Another thing that I learned from being sober for a year is that you don't really miss much. For me, I was still able to have a lot of fun when I went out with my friends. Now, granted, you know, there's kind of a learning curve, because like Kirk is always one of the drunkest ones here, and now he's dead sober. But I think that they learned that, and something that was important for them to learn was that, hey, Kirk can still be fun, and he can still be with us and still spend valuable time with us sober. I think that's something important for you to learn, and that I learned, and that your friends will learn as well. I think my drinking was getting to a point where it was starting to affect my memory, I was harming my body. And I noticed over this past year, I think, obviously for one, you aren't getting hungover. So there's a lot more, I think, just balance in the chemicals, the emotional chemicals, you know what I'm talking about, of your brain. That was definitely one of the reasons I wanted to do the year, is because I came back from last year's birthday, and I, for the first time in my life, experienced depression like they talk about. You know, I never really kind of believed in some of the stuff that people would say, I'll be honest with you. And then I experienced stuff like not being able to get out of bed. Like, I've always heard people say that and never really thought like, okay, that is a little dramatic. But I experienced that for myself, and it really scared me. So not only have I just been more, I think, stable emotionally, which is a challenge for me, but I also have been more creative, I've been more productive, I've had more time to chase my goals, and I've saved so much money. Yeah, in fact, I mean, that was another thing, I just wrote some notes down. Just not having hangovers, and I think one of the things that just became a huge problem for me was that when I did drink, and in the method that I would drink, which is just aggressively, you know, I'd end up having these hangovers that were just atrociously long, and I just couldn't justify the amount of time that I was spending feeling terrible. You know, not only because I was already feeling terrible because of a lot of stuff I was processing, but just because like I have stuff that I'd like to accomplish and do. I was thinking about doing 2 videos for this, and I just really want to knock it out in one and move on with this stuff. But the second thing was with girls. So again, in the months leading up to me taking a season of sobriety and singleness, I started to realize that while I was trying to deal with all these emotional, very kind of traumatic events that have happened in my past, I was really like screwing myself because of the additional like emotional trauma that I was causing in my dating life. And I read a book shortly before taking this year off. It's this book right here, Love, Sex, and Dating by Andy Stanley. And I just would like to read some of the things that I've highlighted. The myth is that once you find the right person, everything will be all right. And that's definitely something that I was banking on. While adding a dose of physical involvement into the mix makes a relationship more exciting and enjoyable, it also makes it more complicated. Commitment now, this is not that one. And then finally, the phrase or sentence that stuck with me the most throughout this year: you must become intentional about becoming the person you're looking for is looking for. I'll say that again. You must become intentional about becoming the person you're looking for is looking for. And that's probably a complicated way of saying become the person you're looking for. And I started to realize that some of the things that I was doing in relationships with girls, the type of girl that I was looking to settle down with, like, she wouldn't be okay with. Like, this became so clear to me that I felt like I needed to take some time off to just completely reevaluate how I'm approaching my relationship with dating. I think one of the most important things that I've come to peace with over the last year is just understanding that I'm okay with being single. And something that's crazy to me now that I've realized over the last couple of weeks is that I'm not crushing on anybody. And I don't know if you've ever been in a period of time where you're just not crushing on someone. I mean, really think about that. Like, have you ever just not had a crush? And maybe you're like, yeah, Kirk, I have. But for me, I realized, like, for years and years and years, I just moved from crush to crush to crush. And I feel like where I'm at now sort of puts me in a place it just puts me in a better mindset for making a real commitment to someone that I'd like to spend the rest of my life with. I think that the way that dating is viewed today, and definitely in my peer group with millennials and Gen Zers, let me just say that. You know, there are all these dating apps and everyone's looking for an immediate connection, and there are all these ways to just make bad decisions quickly, faster than ever. It just really reinforces a lot of lies, I think, that cause a lot of pain for people. And I was no longer, but I was definitely one of those people that was just, I think I was unfulfilled in myself, and I wasn't seeking fulfillment or validation in the right places. And honestly, like, one of the things that I think was so powerful to me to understand was that what I was looking for in a girl to feel validated was something that I wasn't even prepared to reciprocate. So even if this girl could give me what I wanted, how unfair is that I can't even give it back because I'm such a mess emotionally? So I decided to take a year off, and honestly, like, you know, I've had friends joke with me, like I said at the beginning of this video, like, by choice. I'm completely changing the way that I look at it. I think instead of spending all this time, for instance, on a dating app where you're swiping and swiping and swiping, right, and spending all this time chatting with girls that aren't even going to pan out, that you'll never meet, instead of spending all that time doing that, or going on dates with girls that you know you're not going to have a future with, spend that time instead of becoming the person that you want to be with, and spend that time achieving your goals, the goals that you have. And I think just what I've learned over the last year is, like, I've had such a more valuable year than ever before because I just spent it focusing not necessarily on myself, but just becoming the right person, you know? So yeah, I don't know. I think that's all I got to say. Like, I definitely feel like lighter, like I've gotten something off my chest. Yeah, I hope someone, you know, definitely feel free to like reach out to me with any questions that you have. It's been such a powerful year, and I'm so thankful. Yeah, think about something that maybe you can do that, I don't know. I'm not getting on here to get preachy. So anyways, all right, thanks guys. Hopefully got a little less serious of a video for you next week. Bye. Thanks.
The only one who could ever reach me was the son of a preacher man. The only boy who could ever teach me was the son of a preacher man. Yes, he was.